Do you know what the word gospel means?
Good news.
Do you know what the word good news means? The word for good news is called basar in Hebrew. It means good tidings. When you look up that word, it is found in the book of Genesis. And it is found where Adam said to his wife, "You are now bone, flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone," or something like along those lines. The word bone in the usage of flesh, in the usage of that word, means basar, and basar means good news. So what does that mean? What am I trying to say? It means that the words, the gospel, was actually a message to the flesh. What pertains to him, what came out from him, and it's not for the whole world. There's an order that the Most High set in the universe. If you don't understand this, you are going to be out of order. Let's put it that way. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's read John 5, 46 and 47. And Pastor, at any time that you want to stop me, please feel free. I don't want to impose on your time, but you will find that this class is very interesting. Okay? And I'll be here. And remember, there's a portion in the book of Acts that Paul preached from when?
Until midnight.
Until, and then there's somebody who was in the balcony.
Yes.
Well, the only person in the balcony is me. So if I fall off, then you know it's over, right? We just need somebody that can lay hands on me and bring me back from the dead. Anybody is worthy to do that? Oh, okay, all praises to the Most High. Let's read John 5, 46 and 47. All praises to our King.
For had he believed Moses,
Had you believed Moses? Read.
you would have believed me,
It's very, very simple. Why? Read.
for he wrote of me.
Where? Where did Moses wrote about the Messiah? Where did he says, Jesus wept. Jesus is going to do this. Jesus is going to do that. Jesus is going to do that. Where does it say that? Can't find it like that. Christianity has removed the model of how we should look at things. That's why I said in the beginning, we do things on the Hebraic side. Once you have that key, I promise you, you're never going to look at the Bible the same way again. And this is not, I'm not saying this like I'm somebody special. Please don't think like that, because I don't care about that. What I care about is the message that I was given to say. That's important to me, okay? Let's read.
But if you believe not his writings,
If you don't believe what Moses has written,
how shall you believe my words?
this is why most churches give more stories than reading the word of the Most High. You hear a lot of entertaining. Well, when I was a little boy, I did this. When this and ha ha ha, and amen, 15 minutes, everybody goes home. What have you learned? Nothing. Nothing. Let's move on. I'll try not to be sarcastic, because sometimes I can go in that direction. And my sarcasm is not to offend, but to trigger, stimulate thought, okay? What did Philip say about the Messiah? John 1 and 45. Let's take a look. John 1 and 45. New Testament. Read.
Philip findeth Nathanael, and said unto him, We have found him, of whom Moses in the law and the prophets did write.
Stop. Do you see how Philip was able to know if this is the real Messiah? Because there were many men who rose up in Israel saying that they were the Messiah, but this is how these men were able to detect this is the Messiah. What did he use? Did he use a New Testament? Did somebody have to tell him some story? He used the law. The same thing when people say, oh, it's done away with. No, that's done away with. Really? You don't understand what you're reading. As a matter of fact, you might be a eunuch. You know what that means symbolically? You're cut off from understanding. You're emasculated from the truth. The seed is not going to produce anything. That's what it means, okay? Read.
And the prophets did write, Yeshua of Nazareth, the son of Joseph.
So this is how Nathanael proclaimed, me knowing the truth is based upon substance. What I'm using here, which everybody had at the time, okay? What did Shaul or Paul use to teach the Bereans about the Messiah? And that's important. Because here you have a man going out to preach. He never saw the Messiah the way that the disciples seen him, but he saw him in a different form. He didn't spend 3.5 years, which is equivalent to a college degree, without the, vacation time thrown in there. But they spent time with the Messiah, got their scholarship, but Shaul came later on, but he was able to teach the people about the Messiah. Let's see what he used to bring that understanding. Okay, let's go to Acts 17, 1 and 2.
Now when they had passed through Amphipolis and Apollonia, and they came to Thessalonica.
Where did they come to?
Thessalonica.
Read.
Where was the synagogue of the Jews.
Stop. This is the letter to the Thessalonians. The audience that Paul was writing to is right in front of you. Acts 17 and verses 1. So when you read the letter, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, guess who his audience was? Jews, Hebrews. Every time, it's like when you go to New York, you go to any place in the United States, and you feel hungry, or you want to know where your community is, where do you go? You go to the Jamaican shop, or you go to a Caribbean store, so you can get your seasoned rice, and you know what I'm saying? You know exactly where to go. And when you go there, because you don't know anybody, you're saying, okay, excuse me, where is the West Indian community? Because I need to find an apartment. They'll tell you, yeah, man, just go around the corner, or whatever it is they'll say in the lingo. Whatever part of the Caribbean you're from, right? So this is the same practice with the disciples. They went to specific places where they know they can find Hebrews. Where is that? The synagogue. Because the synagogue was an offshoot, a chip off the block of the temple. Okay? Let's read. And his manner?
And Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the scriptures.
Out of the New Testament.
The scriptures.
All right, let's move on. So you notice the language is scriptures. Scriptures, not letters. Scriptures. The letters is what was written afterwards what they did. They used the scriptures and they wrote letters to explain to the people what the scripture is saying. The audience were Hebrews who were scattered. That's why the book of James 1 says, to the 12 tribes that were scattered. For you to understand how these 12 tribes got scattered, what do you need to do?
Go to the scripture.
If I just show up and see Brother Minrod on the side of the street with one leg long, one leg short, no shoes on him, one side of his head is here is long, beard pulled up, I'm going to be like, is that you, brother? Or if he calls out to me, hey, I recognize you. I need to sit with him and learn what? What do I need to learn? How did he what? How did he get to that position? Because that's not the way that I remembered him. So I need to know the history. Without the history, I'm not going to know anything. So the history will explain to us, why did the Bible says 12 tribes scattered? Shouldn't they be all in Israel? 12 tribes, not Jews. There's a difference. Because Naphtali is a tribe, right? Zebulun is a tribe. Jew refers to one tribe, Judah. Okay? Let's read verses 3. What did he do?
Opening and alleging that Christ must needs have suffered and risen again from the dead.
He uses scriptures and proved from the scriptures that the Messiah first have to suffer, rise again from the dead. Read.
And that this Yeshua, whom I preached unto you, is the Messiah.
See that? So what did he use? So if I had to ask the question to any one of you all here who have never heard this before, you're going to have a problem. You will have a problem. Because if I ask you, show me his death and resurrection in the Genesis, you're going to have a problem. If I go to Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Judges, you just go right through, you're going to have a problem. Because you were never, and it's not your fault. We, all of us, was raised under Constantine religion. That's the problem. Okay? Read.
These were more noble than those in Thessalonica.
These Jews, Berean Jews that are here, Hebrews, were more noble than those Jews that were over where? So it's not a congregation called a denomination. It's a heritage. It's a people, real people. Bloodline. Read.
In that they received the word with all readiness of mind, and searched the scriptures daily.
Commentary. They search the commentary daily.
The scriptures
They watch
daily.
video. What does it say?
They searched the scriptures daily, whether those things were so.
What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with you checking the facts. So don't believe everything I'm saying. You got to go check to see what I'm saying is true or not. And then throw me out. But if you throw me out of my head, I'm going to say, man, I appreciate it, but the way the brother roughed me up, I don't like that so much. I feel real bad. And you know, growing up, people have said things, and I used to sit in my mind and say, I thought we were supposed to be going to the same kingdom. Why would that brother or sister say those words about me or about this sister? Passover, Lord, someone, pass the wine, everything else. And after that, me, that person, as soon as the wine and bread finish, greet each other. We have a problem. You know what you call that? Hypocrisy. The highest level of hypocrisy. Pox. Sickness. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's see if we can get this. Oh, here we go. Now let's look at some examples about the Messiah. This is where it's going to get interesting. So when the Bible says in the book, the bottom of the book is written of me, I'm going to give you all some examples of that. I have a whole bunch of lectures on that. I can give you multiple sources. So let's look at it this way. I'm going to explain it this way to you all. You know, in the old time, you know where the word movie comes from? Movies. I want to watch a movie. What's the origin of that word? You know what's it called? Anyone? It's called moving pictures. You take a picture, a snapshot. So now, sister, the sister put her eyebrow up like this. She put it back down. She do this. She do this. And I take a snapshot of every movement that you make. And now what I do, I speed it up. So when you look at it, you're seeing movement. Moving pictures. The same way with the Bible. The Messiah role, what he was supposed to do, his suffering and his death, he took his, you know, movies have something you call a script. Right? You have a director, you have a script. So somebody writes, and then you get actors to act out the role. So you can have the same script and put the same movie over and over and over again. Let me give you an example of that. How many of you all know about Cinderella? How many of you all know about Snow White? What else we have? Give me another one. Rapunzel or something. Don't you see? Do you know the story is basically the same story retold? You have a girl who marries some prince and lives happily ever after. But there was always a villain in between trying to stop her. Either an evil witch or evil sisters or whatever it is. But in the end, only a certain thing has to be used to break the spell so she can get where she needs to go. And this story is being retold over and over. Every time you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, same story. He goes out, beat the bad guy, boom. You have Sylvester Stallone, same thing. It's the same thing, same script, different actors. So you're looking at, oh, I got to see that movie. You just saw it the other day. You don't realize you've been watching the same thing over and over, wasting your money, but it's the same thing. The Bible, what the Most High did was he put a script called the Scriptures. And he chose certain actors to act his role. What he's going to be doing, he says, boom, take my spirit, boom, but a Nimrod's life. Some things in his life is going to be about me, what I'm going to do in the future. Boom, throw Brother Sammy over here. Boom, the sister over here. Boom, this one over here. And some of it in your life may be a whole movie. Some of it in this other person's life might be just a couple of snapshots. And so what the Messiah, what Jesus was saying was, you got to go look at the lives of these people, because in those stories that you call stories, it is speaking about me. Let's look at an example. We're going to look at Isaac's life, for example. Okay, does that make sense? Everybody understand that? Let's look at this. Let's read Genesis 22, verses 1 and 2 as an example. And I'm going to ask a question, because the Bible is telling us something if we look closely. Let's read.
And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of.
What's the problem with that text? What's the problem? Anybody see a problem? A red flag? Let's read it again. And it came to pass after these things that Elohim, God, did tempt Abraham, or test him. No, not that. And said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. Here I am, Most High. And he said, Take now your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and get you into the land of Moriah. What is the problem with that?
He had more than one son.
Say again?
He had more than one son.
He had more than one son. So when God is saying,
That was the promise.
that's not the point. That's not the point. He didn't say the promised son. You see, it's written in such a way that if you don't slow down and look at the thing, you're gonna miss. It's like the sister cook a nice meal. Nice meal is cooked, but we don't taste anything because we have to chew it. They always say, chew your food, chew your food. When you taste it, it says, mommy used some, I like the peppers in that thing. Oh man, that tastes good. You know, when you grow up with that type of a mindset, in that environment, you know what tastes good and what doesn't taste good. And you remember your home cooked food, and you reject everything else. But we are accustomed to eat and wash. And all you do is washing away the taste. So your mind doesn't have enough time to record and process what you are supposed to be digesting. That's why we have digestive problems and all kinds of stuff. So when the text says, take now your son, your only son, that's a red flag, because why? How many sons did Abraham have at that time?
Yeah, two.
Two. What's the first one called?
Ishmael.
So the Most High is trying to tell us something about the Messiah right here. Because it says, whom you love. In other words, the Most High is speaking about himself acting as Abraham and his son acting as the Messiah. Offering up. We're seeing the role of the Father offering his son right here. Even though he had all these other children of the world, or people of the world, he only chose a particular people that he loved. We heard about them, the pageants. All these beautiful ladies, they're walking up the stage, showing everything off. They can speak, very talented. They can play music, they can speak well. But how many of them wear the crown of Miss? Only one. And they can cry and complain, oh, I was more talented. But guess what? Only one can wear the crown. It's the same thing with Israel. You have all these people in the world, but there's only one that the Most High loved. And we'll cover that some other time. Let's move on. Yes, brother. You want to say something?
Well, to make that statement according to this verse, it's kind of throwing me off.
Okay.
To say that it's only Israel that he loves. In reference to this verse, because he said, take now thy son, that only son, as you rightly said, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land to offer it for a burnt offering. Mm-hmm. So if we had to use the whole verse in context of what you're saying, then only Israel should be used as an offering or a sacrifice.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I know, but it should be what you're saying if you're using this verse to justify that he only loves Israel.
I'm making a
Understand what I'm
point.
saying?
Let me clarify myself, and I understand what you're saying. Because what you find is that there's a selection process. The same way that the Messiah was selected through a specific line, we find even in the book of Romans 9, it speaks about Jacob versus Esau. In this particular text here, we can see that it mentions this love for this only one son. But also on a bigger scale, we see when we do the same study, dealing with nations, we find the same concept is used with this one love that he have. You can't find where he says he loved everyone the same way. You can't find it in the Bible, in what you call the Old Testament. Okay? And I can show you that in another time, if you allow me. Because that is a very important question that you brought up. Okay? So in other words, it's almost like an artist. An artist leaves a certain style, a way that he paints or draws. You can see his handiwork in everything. When we look at the Messiah concept, it's there. When you look at nation building, it's there. Everything you can see how he has been selected. Let me ask this question. What does the word sanctify mean? Anybody knows?
Set apart.
It means what?
Set apart.
Set apart. Set apart from what?
Everything else.
For holy, but the word holy means set apart too. Holy means sanctified or set apart. It means the same thing. So it goes back to selecting one particular one. So brother, let me deal with that as a separate discussion, and you'll understand where I'm going with that. It'll make sense to you later on. All right, so let's move on. It's my clicker, okay. So this is a sign here. Here we go. Let's read Genesis 22 verses 8. Let's read that.
And Abraham said, "My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering." So they went both of them together.
Notice the language. It didn't say God will provide a lamb. He says God will provide what?
Himself.
Himself. The book of John, chapter 1. The Word became flesh. The Word was God. The Word was with God. The word God is just a generic term for power. Elohim means power. Okay? It doesn't mean the Father. And see, the problem is that throughout the whole Bible, we always were thinking that it was always the Father that was dealing with people. But that's not what the Bible teaches. It was the Son. He was hidden from. It was always the Son from the very beginning. That's why he says in the bottom of the book is written of who? He didn't say the Father. Right? And as a matter of fact, get me Isaiah 54. You know the one I'm looking for with the bride, the love. I want you to turn, when you finally give them the exact scripture, and I want you all to hear this side note real quick. Okay? I'm going to make a point because remember, it is said, the law and the prophets is written of me. The law will tell you, does the law teach that a man can have his father's wife? Okay. Does the Bible also teach that Jesus is coming back for his bride? Right? The question is, who's his bride? Who's he? A bride is someone that you espouse to, that you marry to, you're in a contract with. Anybody that comes into that contract is breaking that contract, is an adulterer. They're polluting it. They're adding stuff to it, right? Let's see what the Bible says. Isaiah what? What do you have?
54 and 5.
Turn to Isaiah 54 and 5, please. I want you all to confirm what I'm saying. My point is this. Based on this text, who is the one that is married? Let's read.
For thy maker is thine husband.
Your maker is what?
Your husband.
Your maker is your husband. And who is it?
The Lord of hosts is his name. And thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. The Son, the God of the whole earth shall he be called.
Now notice what it says. My maker. When you look at the reading, it's talking about Israel, not other nations. So if the maker is the husband, Adam, technically speaking, is the maker of Eve. Because she came out from him. Do you understand that? It goes much further than that. But I don't want to cite into that direction. My point of the matter is this. When you read that text, it tells you that the maker who made you, because remember John says, the Word became flesh, he made all things. But if this is the word that is written here, if this word is the Messiah, if he is the Messiah, or if people believe that this is God the Father, then we have a problem, because why would God marry the bride of the Son? We have a problem. Because it goes against the very word itself. You understand that? So, who was it that was married to Israel? It was the Son all along. That's another class. So, it says, he'll provide himself a lamb. This is also a clue. Because when John came, John the Baptist saw the Messiah. What did he say? Behold what?
Behold the Lamb.
Behold the Lamb. Okay? Now, why would John have the authority to say, behold the Lamb? What gave John the right to I'm just giving you all a little Hebrew question. Brother Maynard, you remember this? What gave John the authority? Who was given the position to authenticate or to authorize that this lamb was kosher? Who was given the responsibility in Israel to do that?
Priests.
The priest. Thank you, brother. So, did John have the right to declare that the Messiah was a kosher lamb? Yes, he did. You want to know how you can find that out? Book of Luke, chapter 1. You want to know why? Who was John's father?
That's right. A priest.
A priest. And do a son lose his priesthood or lose his role as a priest?
No. Shouldn't.
All sons of Aaron are priests or Levites. So John had the authority to declare the Messiah the Lamb because John was a priest. He was from Aaron's seed. You all understand this? So when you see all these things, the Bible is telling us how we should view. That's why the book of Luke was written in a certain format that is different from the book of John, from the book of Matthew, because you have someone recording this knowledge from a priestly perspective. Okay? So let's read verses 12.
And he said, lay not thine hand upon the lad,
Mm-hmm.
neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me.
It's repeated twice because he wants us to get the message. And we know full well that that doesn't make any sense. How can you declare this my only son when you know full well you gave me a son before this one? The Bible is written in such a way to provoke us to look into things a second time and to dig out the meaning. The Bible says that the kings do what? They search out the deeper things.
Yes.
This is what we're supposed to do. This is why we're supposed to be kings and
Priests.
because we dig out the stuff and we find these jewels. It's there. Okay? Let's move on. So right in this particular part with Isaac, it's a declaration that this young lad, he's going to be called the Lamb, and he's going to be my son that is chosen as an offering. Now when it throws burnt in there, it throws people off. Burnt. So you say the Messiah has to be burnt? No. But it's leaving breadcrumbs that we can find the real Messiah. But let's move on. It doesn't stop there. Let's get verses 13. Check this out.
And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold.
When we see the word lifting up your eyes, that's Hebrewism for looking into the future. It's prophecy. Anytime you see behold, it's like looking way ahead in the future. So what you're looking at here is prophecy. Let's prove that. Read.
Behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns.
Now notice that beforehand it mentions lamb, right? But now it mentions a ram. Why is that? What is a ram? What's the difference between a ram, sis, and a lamb? Huh? Well, yes, that's correct, but there's a little bit more. Let's see if your daughter can pull that out. A ram. Not just the sex being a male. Let's read the verse. We'll get the sense.
A ram caught in a thicket by his horns.
By his horns. Rams have horns. If Isaac is a type of Christ. What does a horn show? What is the difference between a lamb and a ram with the horns? What does a ram, what is a horn? Power. What does the horns used for? Power. A king. A king. Because in the old days, you see those crowns have those little points around it? It didn't start off that way. In ancient times, men go out and fight a wild beast. When they win victorious, they cut the horn and they put all the horns of how many beasts that they have won into a ring and they set it upon their heads. That they had power over this other beast. Okay? So when you see this thing here, it's trying to tell you something in the future. Behold, in the future, the Messiah is an adult. He's as a king. Remember when he was on the cross, there was a sign written above his head? And Pilate says, what I have written. You can't change that. He's king. The Bible is telling us that this is what's happening. But look where he's caught. He's caught in the thicket by the horns. What is a thicket? Is a thicket a wall? Is a thicket the ground? What's a thicket? I have the picture right there. Plant material. How did the Messiah, and remember, this ram was just about to be sacrificed. He was by the head, just about to be sacrificed, but what was on his head was what? A thicket. What was on the Messiah's head when he was crucified?
Crown of thorns.
Crown of thorns. Plant material. This ram was caught in the prime of his life with a crown of, thicket is like kasha. You put that thing all around as a hedge. But you can see where he was caught. He wasn't caught in the thicket by his feet or his arm. The Bible specifically is telling you how the Messiah is going to die. How he was going to be lifted up or caught. He was going to have something on his head. We're going to see, the thing is that a true case is that you must have multiple witnesses. So if one person says something, that's not sufficient to put somebody free, let them free or put them in jail. You need multiple sources, so we're going to prove that too. We're going to see if we find the same pattern. That's why he says in the volume of the book. So read on. By his horns.
And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son.
Instead of his son, in the place of his son. These are all clues about the Messiah. Let's move on. Let's take a look and see. We find some of the same stuff somewhere else. Let's look at Joseph real quick. Can we find the same thing with Joseph? Remember, Yeshua says to the people on the road to Emmaus that didn't you know I was supposed to suffer and die? Let's see if we can find the same thing in the book of Genesis. Chapter 40, verses 1, 2, and 5. Come on, clicker. Here we go. Let's read this. Genesis 40, verses 1.
And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended the Lord, the king of Egypt.
These are two actors playing out the role of the Messiah. You're going to see what I'm talking about real quick. Verses 2.
And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers.
Now, the butler is a servant. Is that correct? A baker serves the king also. So put it on your little list, servant who serves somebody greater than themselves. The role of the Messiah. But they have a unique position. One is a butler and one is a baker. One deals with bread and one deals with something else. Let's read on.
And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers, and against the chief of the bakers.
Let's read verses 5.
And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night.
Notice the word one night is there. In other words, the dreams are the same. Even though they're two separate individuals, but it's the same. It's almost like two people divided up, or one person divided into two. Read.
Each man according to the interpretation of his dream.
Read.
The butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison.
Notice that they were bound in prison. What does that have to do with the Messiah? Are we getting a clue that the Messiah was to be bound in a prison? But what does these two individuals have to do with the Messiah? Let's move on. Come on, clicker. Okay. Oops, there we go. Verses 9, let's read. Genesis 40 and verses 9, 2 verses 11. Read.
And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me.
Notice it mentions vine. That's important. Let's read.
And in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes.
Now notice the word 3 is mentioned here. What does 3 have to do with the Messiah's death?
Days.
The days. But remember, he not only died, but what did he do? Resurrected. If I take something, we call it a seed, and I throw it into the earth, and 3 days later it arises, and it has green leaves, will we say that's death, or what will we call that? Life. Where can we find something with that number being equated to life? In Genesis chapter 1, for example. Where can we find that? Remember the creation, right? What's the first thing that was made? You had, or
Light.
brought out, light. What do you call it? Life.
Then you had the firmament.
That's the first day, the second day. What was done on the third day? Since I'm focusing on 3, can you find for me real quick, Elder? Genesis chapter 1, the third day. Real quick, Elder. I know you're tired, but I'm going to stimulate you a little bit. Because Moses was older than you. And he had a lot more responsibility. Okay? What does it say? Genesis chapter 1, and look for the third day. What occurred in the third day? I'm giving you also another side of the Hebrew thought with numbers. What does it say? Third day, what came about? What does it say, sis? You got the mic?
God said, let the waters under the heaven.
The third day was the waters? Okay, read.
Yeah, there's water, land, and
waters.
Under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielded fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind.
What day was that? You can jump down to that part. What day was that?
The third day.
Third day. So here you have something of darkness, no life, nothing happening, and all of a sudden on the third day you have life appearing. So now the Bible is teaching us that number 3, anytime you see the number 3, is always about life. Something was about to die, but all of a sudden it lived. 3. It's a huge clue. Okay, so let's move on. 3, we got that out the way.
Verse 11.
And thank you for reading that, sis. Read.
And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. And I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup. And I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand.
So look at the language. We have a vine, we have 3 branches, it budded, which means life, right? And then notice it says ripe grapes. Cup was in his hand. All of these are clues about the Messiah's final days. Okay, let's move on if we can get this thing to move. Oh, here we go. Verses 12.
And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days.
Read.
Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place.
So he's going to, after 3 days, he's going to be restored to where he was before. How does that connect with the Messiah? Clue, right? Read.
And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner when thou was his butler.
Butler. Erase that word butler, put the word servant. So you have someone who was servant to somebody higher than him, who dealt with wine, grapes, right? He was marked for death. He was supposed to be executed. But all of a sudden, 3 days later, he's going to rise back to his position. Let's move on to the next character. Verses 16.
When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head.
Notice it says 3 white baskets on my head. Why didn't the Bible just say 3 baskets? Why did it have to use the word white in there? You see, these are the things that sometimes we swallow, but we never really taste. We're going to see what I'm talking about. Verse 17.
And in the uppermost basket there was all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head.
So we also have basket mentioned being where? On the head. And birds were eating the different baked meats, we call it pastries. Different types of croissants, whatever it is, a Pharaoh like, right? Basket upon head, but notice the word head. Let's move on. Okay, here we go. Verses 18.
And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head from off thee.
Off of you.
And shall hang thee on a tree.
So wait a minute. What does it have to do with the Messiah? Read.
And the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday.
Notice the word Pharaoh's birthday. Read.
That he made a feast.
So wait a minute. What does a feast have to do with the timeline of events the Messiah died? When did the Messiah die? What time of the year? What would you call that when he died? Brother, when? Passover is a feast. But Passover, according to Leviticus 23, is the feast of the Lord. So Pharaoh is acting the role of who? The father. Okay? It is his feast. So we have it written in such a way where the script is telling us the role of how everything is going to play out, but we never really see it because we were never taught that way to look at things that way. Right? So it's Pharaoh's birthday that he made a feast. Read.
Unto all his servants.
Now the feast of the Lord is for us. He says you got to keep it in the seasons. Read.
And he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants.
So you have 2 people being lifted, one to death and one to life. So my question is, let me see. My question is, if we can get this thing to be clicked. Oh, come on, clicker. Okay. Sometimes we're dealing with spiritual wickedness in high places. There we go. Let me back up. Let me back up just a little bit. So the question is, we're talking about the Messiah making a statement. He says, don't you know I was supposed to die and suffer and die? What does wine and bread have to do with the Messiah? What? Last Supper. He was telling you about the Passover, the final moments before he died. There was going to be bread and wine. The bread is dealing with the death, his body being broken, the birds picking, the unclean birds picking his flesh out, the Romans, and the life of the vine. You know what the vine is? Israel. Look it up, you'll see. He called Israel a choice vine. You can't find that for other nations. All the language of what you call the Old Testament is used there. But it's written to a people who understand that language. Just like you cracking a joke in patois, you throw certain things in there, and some other person walk around, they don't know what you're laughing about. It doesn't sound funny to them. But the culture, they understand what is being said. They understand that thing. So here you have, let's back up a little bit. Remember we talked about the ram was caught with a thicket in the head. In Joseph's story, we have the guy who's supposed to die also had a basket on his head. What is a basket made from? What is straw? Straw is plant material. You have a ram caught in the prime of his life with something on his head. You have the baker with something on his head, which is made from plant material. It tells us about the Messiah is going to have a crown of thorns on his head. But why did it mention white? Remember that in the New Testament it calls the Pharisees whited walls, a sepulcher, dead graves, because in Hebrew, white is symbolic of painting these graves a certain color, so you would know to abstain from those places. So in the Hebrew language, when you put all these pieces together, you are able to see the Messiah, that whatever this bread is dealing with death. The bread itself is broken. The bread and wine is dealing with the last portion of his life and his resurrection. This is why he called them fools. You all see this? Okay? So this is not some ordinary stuff. This is some deep stuff. But let's see if we find it in the book of Jonah. It's going to skip ahead and go to Jonah. Jonah chapter 1, verses 4 to verses 6. Let's read. And let me show you, brothers and sisters, that even outside, remember he says the Torah or the 5 books, but also the prophets. Let's take a look and see what it's saying.
I wanted to say also that the thieves that were on the cross with him on either side of them. Also.
That's right. It goes much deeper. Because that's another point. Thank you for bringing that up. So remember that in the Messiah's death, he had 2 people on the side. One of them was going to have life in paradise, and the other one was cuss him out. So what are you talking about? The baker was the one who was cussing him out, and the butler, which is another servant, both of them acting the role of the Messiah. The role of the Messiah is going to do for life. He says, take this is life for you. But eat this bread, my body's broken for you. I'm dying for you. Who is the you he was dying for? You need the history. You need the history to know who he was dying for. Otherwise, you're going to have everything messed up. And most of the history is written in Luke 1. You just never seen it before. Never paid attention, I should say. Well, let's read. Jonah, chapter 1, verses 4 to verses 6.
But the Lord sent out a great wind into the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, so that the ship was like to be broken. Then the mariners were afraid and cried every man unto his God, and cast forth the wares that were in the ship into the sea to lighten it of them.
Now, how does this story connect to the Messiah? How do we know this is a messianic story or prophecy? That there was a group of men who was on board a ship, and somebody was there that was special, and the people were in a storm and they were terrified. And it says, we're gonna die, we're gonna die. What does that sound like to you? Where have you read it before in the New Testament? I'm giving you all the clues. Remember the disciples? Not just that alone, but remember the disciples were on a boat, and the Messiah was in the bottom of the boat, fast asleep. And they were all crying out because they're going to perish. When you see the Most High has given us that piece of information, he's telling us, go back and read Jonah's story again. You see that? Go back and read that again one more time, because it is transforming. Let's read. We're going to get some more out of that. But
Jonah was gone down into the sides of the ship, and he laid and was fast asleep.
That's identical to what the disciples went through. So if you want to know about the Messiah doing the same thing with the disciples, you got it here already. That's why you don't need the New Testament letters, because it's already written there. Let's read.
So the shipmaster came to him and said unto him, what meanest thou, O sleeper? Arise, call upon thy God, if so be that God will think upon us that we perish.
Master, we perishing. Why are you sleeping? Master, we perishing. Same language, same thing. Same thing. We're looking at the same story repeated over and over again. Let's read Jonah 2, verses 1 to 3.
Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish belly and said.
Now listen carefully to Jonah's prayer, because Jonah's prayer is directly tied to the Messiah. Now the Messiah gave us a clue when he says, just as Jonah was 3 days, and we says, okay, that's it, and we close the book. But do you know there's much more than that? Let's find out. Let's see. Read.
And said, I cry by reason of mine affliction unto the Lord. And he heard me out of the belly of hell.
The belly of hell.
Cried I, and thou heardest my voice.
Read.
For thou hast cast me into the deep, in the midst of the seas. And the floods compass me about. All thy billows and thy waves pass over me. Now, seas is prophetically equivalent to what? When you read the book of Revelations, it talks about seas as what? Peoples. Wasn't the Messiah amongst some strange peoples? Not just Hebrews, but remember the Romans were there? Let's read on. Watch carefully. Was that it? Yes, on that.
Let's move on to the next one. I want you all to see what's coming up next, because there we go. Let's read verses 4 to verses 5.
Then I said, I am cast out of thy sight, yet will I look again toward thy holy temple.
Notice the language. I am cast out of your sight, yet will I look again. In other words, I will return back to where I was before, look toward your holy temple. Where did he come from? The first temple is in heaven. The blueprint was given to Moses on earth. The Messiah was the one that's returning back to where he came from before. But he's putting the same speech in Jonah's tongue. Let's see if it's consistent. Verses 5.
The waters compassed me about.
Jonah is saying the waters compassed. The people surrounded me.
Even to the soul.
They even want to take my life. Read.
The dead closed me round about. The weeds were wrapped around about my head.
What is a weed? Plant material. What did we look at the first two? The ram was caught with a plant material around his head. Is that correct? That's the first witness. Right? Because when you read about the Messiah being crucified, nobody's showing you that the real Messiah was going to have something on his head. Everything there is new because it's New Testament. But it's not new. It's old stuff. Because it's right there. It's showing you that the weeds was wrapped around his head. Jonah is acting the role of the Messiah. Jonah was only acting out the role. A person who was sent to bring a message to a people. Jonah didn't like the people so much. And I know many of you all think that Jonah went to some ungodly people, some non-Israelites. But that is not correct either. Because the piece that is missing is the history. There's a book called the Book of Tobit. Tobit was from the tribe of Naphtali. Tobit is part of the Apocrypha. It's called the Hidden Books that was taken out from the original King James Bible. We have an original right there without it has the ye, but it's not in the old English. But the Cambridge version has all the books in there. In the book of Tobit, it speaks of Jonah coming to Nineveh, prophesying to the Hebrews who were brought into captivity in Nineveh
by the Assyrian king.
Under the Assyrian king. In order for you to know this, you have to read the book of Kings. When the kingdom of Israel was divided into two, you had Solomon had sinned, remember that? And then you had Jeroboam, which was his apprentice, his servant. The Most High gave Jeroboam 10 tribes in the north. And then Rehoboam, Solomon's son, had 2 tribes, Judah, Benjamin. The priests were scattered amongst all of them. So you had 2 houses. Okay? When they disobeyed the Most High, the north kingdom, the 10 tribes, they were taken into Assyria. There was animosity between the two. The southern kingdom fought against the northern kingdom. They hated each other. Jonah was from the southern kingdom. When the Most High told Jonah to go preach to his family over in Nineveh, he didn't want to go. That's why he took the ship and went the opposite direction. So Jonah went to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I can give you all of the information that you can see for yourself, and don't take a word I'm saying, you got to prove it for yourself, okay? But that's important because it's a bridge to close up some of the mysteries that we were never taught. You see, so let's look at this again. Weeds were wrapped about my what? That's showing us that the Messiah was supposed to do what? Have a crown of thorns around his head. You all see that? I'm not going to be too long. Let me see if we can give a few more and wrap it up, okay? Let's look at Daniel. Daniel chapter 6, verses 1 to 20. Let's look at something very interesting about Daniel with this sometime. Here we go. Daniel chapter 6, let's read from verses 1.
It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom. And over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first.
3. The number 3 is in there. Read.
And the princes might give account unto them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, because an excellent spirit was in him. So
Daniel had an anointing spirit upon him. Yeshua opened the book in Luke chapter 4, Matthew 4. The spirit of the Lord is upon me, and then he only read to a certain part and he closed the book. He didn't read the rest of it. If he had to read the rest of it, guess what? He has to do what?
Fulfill it.
Fulfill it. So all he was doing is saying, you see this script, this movie, this is only part 1. You got to wait for the part 2. This is the reason why he closed the book. We don't look at these things. Close the book. Okay, let's read on. So Daniel is going to be the Messiah now. Let's see how that's going to be.
And the king thought to set him over the whole realm.
So the king, in Joseph's story, Pharaoh was the highest. Pharaoh was acting the role of the father. Abraham, the role of the father. Isaac, the son, Jesus. Joseph, Jesus. Why? Because Jesus came to save his people from their sins. Bring much life, life abundantly. Joseph came to save his family from a famine. You don't have food, you're going to die. Okay? The chosen son was there. Otherwise, you're not going to have any life. Because if Abraham don't have a chosen seed, his line is cut off. He's dead. So through his son, he lives. He continues on. Life. Where there's impossibility, there's life. So now you have Daniel coming up on the scene. And we're going to see some life in Daniel also. Let's read verses 4.
Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel.
The presidents and princes, didn't we have a bunch of people that was trying to find occasion against Christ? What do we call them?
Scribes and Pharisees.
Scribes and Pharisees. So when you read this, the Bible is telling us, hey, the Messiah is going to have some opposition, and they're not going to be no little guys. It's going to be some big dudes. Read.
Go back.
Something changed?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I didn't even press anything. Uh-oh. See, I told you all about the principalities in high places. You don't believe me, huh? See, look at that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Come on.
You have to go backward.
I'm pressing the wrong thing. Brother, thank you so much. Okay, let's try that again. You know, I'm so used to this, it doesn't bother me anymore. Believe me, whenever we do teachings, all kinds of different things has happened.
Okay, so I'm going to read again. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could not find none occasion, no fault.
So, remember when they tried to accuse the Messiah, they couldn't find any fault in him. He went from one place to the other, right? Read.
For as much as he was faithful
to the Father, right?
Neither was there any error or fault found.
Doesn't that
in
sound
him.
like the Messiah himself? All right. Let's move on now. Let's see. Come on. Okay. There we go. 10.
Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber towards Jerusalem.
Now remember when Yeshua knew that the betrayer had already signed a contract to put his life to death, right? Where did he go? Straight to the garden. It's right there, right in front of you. To the place that he normally do what? Let's read. He did what? What did he do?
He knelt upon his knees
And what did he do?
3 times a day and prayed.
What did Yeshua do when he found out that whatever you're going to do it quickly? The deal was already done, sealed. First thing that the Messiah did what?
Prayed.
Went to pray.
Yes.
Isn't that the same thing?
He actually went and prayed 3 times.
3 times. The number 3 again, showing up. Letting you know that this has a lot to do with life and death situations. Read.
And prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime.
As the same way he did before. Right? Read.
Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God.
Remember when all the men came and found Yeshua praying? To grab him, to put him into prison? Now the Bible is going to teach us that part of the story of the Messiah, that moment he's going to be placed into prison. Well, let's see if it's accurate or not. Come on. Daniel chapter 8, verses 13 to 15. Let's read.
Then answered they and said before the king that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah.
Messiah is from Judah, right? And wasn't the Messiah under Roman occupation? That's captivity. Read.
Regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed.
Didn't the people accuse Yeshua of breaking Caesar's rules? Whose inscription is this? He don't want to, there's no king but Caesar. Read on.
But maketh his petition 3 times a day.
3 shows up again. Read.
Then the king went, when he heard these words, was displeased with himself. And set his heart on Daniel to deliver him.
Remember, there was 2 people that was prosecuting, well, it was 3. The scribes and Pharisees, Herod, and who's the other one? Pilate. 3. Do you think that's a coincidence? But one of them wanted to set him free. Remember, it was Joseph and 2 others. What do you call that? 3. 3 showing up. Okay? So now you have Pilate saying, listen, man, this guy is innocent. And my wife had been having nightmares about this dude. I'm going to wash my hands and free myself from this case. It's right in the volume of the book. Read on.
And he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him.
Oh, is that interesting? Till the going down of the sun. Read.
Then these men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, Know, O king, that the law of the Medes and Persians is that no decree nor statute which the king established may be changed.
Notice what it says. It cannot be changed. That's why the Bible says, I am God. I do what?
Change not.
But the church have changed a lot of things. You see, when you take away the law, you don't have a Messiah. You don't. Now let's read, let's continue on. Let's see what it says. Where's this thing positioned, Brother George? Is it, oh, here we go. I just want to see if I got to aim it correctly. Because Paul says you got to press towards the mark. Press towards the mark. I'm trying to press towards the mark. But
You skip one.
I skipped one?
Yes.
Oh, I overshot the mark. Come on. So we need someone to control it directly over there, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want to see your head bowing. If I see your head bowing, we'll have to lay hands on you. And the laying of hands will not be the normal laying of hands you're accustomed to. Okay? So let's go.